Thank you for remaining with us. You're still watching Financial Markets. My name is Anthony and I am your host. We were talking briefly before the break about the top gainers, and we see that yesterday's trading was not done mostly on the Uganda, actually not the trading, the movement in prices was not done in the Ugandan markets. We see some trading that happened with some companies like MTN Uganda trading certain volumes. We see also companies like Bank of Baroda who are very active really on the market, but we don't see any movement in terms of their pricings, in terms of how the market prices are changing. Mainly we see this change in the cross-listed companies. Now, for a company to be cross-listed, usually there are challenges that come with that. Definitely because the company is not known in that particular country where it's cross-listing, but also sometimes when a company doesn't have subsidiaries in that particular country, people may not be able to trust the company. They'll be like, how does this company run? You know, and then it is difficult usually to find buyers or sellers of such stock. And to try to change that a little bit, some companies, stock brokerage firms in particular, offer services where they are able to trade on different stocks around Africa. Particularly when you look at stockbrokers like Dyer and Blair, SBG Securities, UAP Old Mutual. These are people who can get you stock from other East African countries, and some of them can get you stock from even other stock markets like that are not in East Africa, like Johannesburg, Nigeria, and so on. So people would find it preferable to invest in these companies on their particular exchanges back at home, back in Kenya, back in South Africa, because they feel maybe they will be able to find much more buyers, they will be able to find more activity on those particular markets, and this gives them a feel of security, and maybe that's what we are seeing on the market as well here. So there is a certain influence on that influences how people trade, also where the company is from, where it has its presence, and how the company operates in that particular country. Those factors and more have influence, a lot of influence on that particular stock performance. Now, looking at these East African brewery stock, now East African Breweries is one of the oldest breweries in East Africa, celebrating 100 years this year, meaning it was begun in 1922, and it is East African Breweries, the group holding company for the largest brewing concern in East Africa, and with an annual turnover of over $325 million. And the East African Breweries Limited owns about 100% shares in Kenya, in the Kenyan Breweries Limited, and it owns about 93% of Uganda Breweries Limited here in Uganda, and about 86% in Kibo Breweries in Tanzania, meaning it's an East African multi-company that gives, that has different subsidiaries here and there, with stake in Uganda breweries, with stake in Kibo breweries in Tanzania, with stake in 100% stake in Kenya breweries in Kenya there. So East African Breweries on the Uganda Security Exchange was one of the earliest listings, especially the earliest cross-listing, looking into the fact that it was listed in 2001 on the 27th of March. It trades under the ticker symbol EABL, as you can see on the screen, and it is currently the fourth most valuable stock on the Uganda Securities Exchange, with a market capitalization of 3.53 million trillion Ugandan shillings, which is about 16.4% of the entire Uganda Security Exchange equity market. Now, let's look at its performance lately, looking into 10 months ago. And now we see that in July, just like equity, we see in July, at the beginning of the month of July, we see the company coming down a little bit, as you can see on the graph, slumping down to prices as low as 3,200, 3,400 and 3,500, and then a sharp increase that went back to 4,400, which is when you draw a line at 4,400 right there. If you draw a straight line, you see that it passes through most of the points, at least before the month of December 2021. So meaning it's back to its average pricings. And if you can just tell from the curve, it's quite a stable counter with not much fluctuations along the way, except that decline that we see in November 2021 leading into December and January. But besides that, really, it is a stable stock, and we don't see much fluctuations there in price. Probably can be explained by the fact that we don't see much activity or trading on this specific counter. But yesterday, we see that it came up by 0.44%, and that was about 19.53 shillings, and to a price of 461.21. Now, when we move to another table here that shows the trading results, we see that there was no traded volumes yesterday, and there were no number of deals recorded, neither was there gross turnover therefore. But we see the shares outstanding at 791 million Ugandan, 791 million shares, and the market capitalization of 3.53 trillion. Now, a common person will ask himself or herself, how come a counter that is not trading any volumes, that has not seen any gross turnover, no deals have been made on the counter, have movement in prices? Yes, well, cross listings, that's how it works. Sometimes they don't have movements and nothing happens like trading, but we still see price movement because that is the influence of those, because of the influence of these, the counters, the trading on these counters on their domestic exchanges. So much as we didn't have any buying or selling on the equity, on the East African Breweries Limited counter here in Uganda, maybe in Kenya, there was trading, and probably here when we compare with the prices there, we see that there is a movement towards an increase or a positive direction here in Uganda. Regarding the competitors for this particular stock, it has only one competitor who deals in beverages or consumer goods service sector, and he is the British American Tobacco Uganda, who has a market capitalization of 736 billion, and his year-to-date performance has seen a 50% decline in price to 15,000. You remember British American Tobacco began the year with prices as high as 30,000, and we see him right now at 15,000. So he came down by 50%. But regarding this particular stock, I think it's an investable stock, though you may hardly find people trading on it as well. So it's a challenge that maybe you and I can solve. If we start buying some of this stock here in Uganda, we can make it a little bit more active. If we look into a little bit into the administration of this company, it is headed by Andrew David Cohen as its group managing director and chief executive officer since 2016. The company's board of directors is chaired by Mr. Charles Kahara Muchene, a 65-year-old, who is, of course, heading the board of 11 members. And we see also the vice chairperson, Okefe Rory John. As you should know about these people before you invest, because if you know the history of these people, the performance, how they have performed, some of these people have performed well in other companies and maybe just got into East African breweries. Those are all performance indicators that you can choose to consider before investing in a particular stock. Moving to another gainer, we see Jubilee Holdings Limited, who came in also with a 0.44% growth. And Jubilee Holdings is an insurance company here in Uganda, and it has several subsidiaries also, but the mother company is Jubilee Holdings in Kenya. Now, Jubilee Holdings was revived in Uganda. Its operations were revived in 1992 by the formation of the Jubilee Insurance Company of Uganda, together with Aga Khan Fund for Economic Development, International Finance Corporation, and the Development Finance Company of Uganda. Jubilee Holding is one of the leading insurance companies in Uganda. It trades under the ticker symbol JHL, as you can see, and this ticker symbol is followed by the International Securities Identification Number KE, a couple of zeros, 273. Jubilee Holdings Limited is currently the 8th most valuable stock on the USE with a market capitalization of 476 billion Ugandan shillings, which is about 2.22% of the Uganda Security Exchange equity market. And based on its performance yesterday, we see a 0.44% growth, and that is a 34.83 Uganda shillings gain that went up to 7,955.03. And this particular counter, we see that on average, in the past 10 months, we can see a slight decline from around the month of November to around the month of May. And that was a decline from, if you can see that price, it was an average of about 10,000 back then in 2021 to now an average of 8,000. That is a net loss of about 2,000 Ugandan shillings worth of value in just those last 10 or so months. And looking into this performance, it doesn't change much. We see that the counter is quite stable, though we don't see much activity as well. And this stock is quite expensive compared to most other stocks that we have seen before, except for British American Tobacco. This is one of the highest prices you can find on the Uganda Security Exchange, with some counters like National Insurance doing 6 shillings and dealing in the same sector. Probably people find it more attractive to invest in such rather than Jubilee Holdings, because few people are willing to part with 8,000 just to buy one share, you know, just like they're unwilling to part with 15K to buy the share of British American Tobacco, definitely for understandable reasons, but probably they can't afford that. But still on the counter, we can see that her price, Jubilee Holdings, is not that turbulent. So if you're feeling like, you know, safe investment, long term, 3, 4, 5 years of waiting, you can invest in this particular stock because you see it takes quite long for it to slump or to move up or move down, and we can see that based on the performance of this stock in the last 10 or so months. Now let's look into the trading results of this particular counter. The last trading results, we see that there was no traded volume. Like all the other companies, they just had movement in prices, but there was no traded volumes yesterday. And we see that the shares outstanding were 59.9 million at the moment, and the capital market capitalization is 476 billion Ugandan shillings. And that is the Jubilee Insurance stock for you. The competitor here, the big competitor, is National Insurance Corporation, who has been trading at averages of 6 shillings, of 6.2, 6.5, and around that. That was the pricing for the stock for National Insurance. National Insurance, unlike Jubilee Holdings, is one of the people that have gained in terms of year-to-date. They're one of the top performers when it comes to year-to-date performance, who gained by 17.7% over the period. And we see that his market capitalization is smaller, quite smaller than this one of 476 billion. His market capitalization is currently 8.49 billion. And the closing price yesterday for National Insurance Corporation was 6 shillings. A couple of other competitors that are maybe not so related, but they compete within the same financial services sector, We see that DFCU, KCB Bank, Equity Bank Limited, British American Bank of Baroda, Uganda, Stanbic Bank, Uganda, and Centum Investment are coming in those places where Jubilee Holding is competing. But it is still something you can consider. Remember, all we can do here is to advise you, but the choice is up to you which companies you find attractive to invest in. And the value you gain for your company, from your company that you're investing in, is definitely based on such performance indicators that we share with you. And now moving into the Umeme counter. Umeme came out last yesterday. I don't know if this is because of the president's comments on Twitter very recently. We've seen the president, of course, talk about Umeme and so on. But definitely this has nothing to do with probably what's happening to Umeme on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Umeme in particular lost 2 shillings to trade, to close the day with a trading price of 200 Ugandan shillings. And looking at Umeme, it was incorporated as a company in Uganda in the year 2004 on the 6th of May, and later converted into a public company on the 28th of June 2012 and the Companies Act. Now, Umeme is a subsidiary of Umeme Holdings, which is itself a subsidiary of Actis Infrastructure, an investment fund under the management of Actis. So it is lying underneath those 3 categories. Actis, which is the big guy, and then we have the investment fund under Actis, which is Actis Infrastructure, and then we have Actis Infrastructure Umeme Limited. Then Umeme took over the distribution system for distributing and supplying electricity in Uganda from the Uganda Electricity Distribution Company, UEDCL, under the concession period of 20 years that will, of course, that commenced 2005 on the 1st of March and will end in 2025. Umeme trades under the ticker symbol UMEM and has been listed since 30th of November 2012. And the USE under the ticker symbol UMEM has a identification security number at UG0001145. It currently is the 10th most valuable stock in terms of value. It is at position number 10, and with a market capitalization of over 3 to 5 billion Ugandan shillings, which makes about 1.51% of the Ugandan exchange, securities exchange equity market. So it's coming in position number 10. So you can see the most valuable stock is equity. We saw also East African Breweries somewhere in the 4th position. We see Jubilee Holdings somewhere, and you can see Umeme coming in position number 10. So meaning there's still a lot more work to be done with our local companies here in terms of listing on the exchange. And if you're a business owner, once again, this is just for you to remember, you can also list your company. You can come through to Uganda Security Exchange. If you qualify, you issue your prospectus and you can qualify, you can go on the exchange. If you can't, they have a new system that they're coming up with called a dala, which is a Ugandan word to mean a ladder. And this is to help smaller companies that are still coming up to come up with, ways of growing and advancing slowly by slowly, so they can also be listed on the main board, on the main securities exchange of the country. And you'll be able to enjoy some of the benefits we see here. Now let's look at this particular stock here, the performance that, of course, has been seen on the market recently. Now, if you look on this graph, it's quite a fascinating graph here with much activity that we can see along all these fluctuations and ups and downs. But simply this is indicating the movements of pricings of the Umeme stock. And if you see 10 months ago, Umeme was trading at well below 200 shillings in the month of September 2021. We see it at around 199 Ugandan shillings. And we see those prices were a bit stable, but went down at some points and then went back up to maximums of 200 shillings. But then we see in November, closing the year 2021, the stock still went down a little bit, slightly to around 175, if you can see that. And it's remained like that until the beginning of the month of Jan 2022. And we see those fluctuations go up and down for several amounts of times. And we see from January to March still at 175, the stock was actually still at a low price. But then in the month of April, if you remember, we were here and with, of course, the Uganda Security Exchange officials talking about the performance for the first quarter of the year 2022. And we saw how Umeme and Stanbic came out on the top 3 companies that had, by turnover in performance, that of course traded most stock on the Uganda Security Exchange. And probably this explains this sharp rise in prices there, because people were yearning to buy stock in Umeme. Definitely probably because of the dividend they had promised to shareholders of 54.9 Ugandan shillings per share. And we saw that, make the Umeme stock very, very, very competitive. And we see that the prices went up to as high as 240, 230, as we can see here on this plateau, which leveled off from the month of May until the month of June, where we see now that the prices are coming back down to prices of as low as 200 shillings. But definitely this stock, if you look at it, it's a very attractive stock. You can see in just 1 year, you have a gain of from 175 averages to averages of 200. So it is a growing stock and very promising. And if I were you, I would consider buying some of this stock while it's still going down. Well, we have to go for another short break, unfortunately. But when we return, we finish up with Umeme and see how its year-to-date performance has been, the weekly performance. We also look into how much volumes have been traded in the last couple of days, and we see if we can harness these opportunities and gain value from this Umeme stock in particular. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.